for pre-need funerals, burials, or cremations since 1975. It's Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg. Funeral service for Gloria Jean Bates, age 67 of Sylacauga, is Saturday at 2 p.m. from the chapel of Radley Smith Funeral Home, with Brother Milton Buddy Morris officiating. Mrs. Bates died July 10th at her residence. Visitation Saturday, noon until 2 at the funeral home. Memorial message may be sent to the family at radleysmith.com. Radley Smith Funeral Home directing. Memorial service for Pam Tazy Kyle, age 61 of Sylacauga, is Saturday at 5 p.m. from the chapel of Radley Smith Funeral Home. Brother David Vick officiating. Mrs. Kyle died Thursday at her residence. Visitation Saturday 4 until 5 at the funeral home. Memorial message may be sent to the family at radleysmith.com. Radley Smith Funeral Home directing. Funeral service for John Stanley Cox, age 55 of Childersburg, is today at noon from First United Methodist Church in Childersburg, with burial in the Green Hill Memorial Gardens of Childersburg. Visitation this morning 10 until noon at the First United Methodist Church in Childersburg. Memorial message may be sent to the family at radleysmith.com. Radley Smith Funeral Home in Sylacauga directing. Many of you knew John, and he was the son of Coach Cox and Mrs. Cox, and he's just a fine young man, and certainly will miss him at football games, basketball games, any game that Childersburg High School was involved in, he was there. And he'll certainly be missed. He'll be remembered today at noon at First United Methodist Church in Childersburg. Radley Smith Funeral Home, Sylacauga directing. Mrs. Murel Thein, age 68 of Sylacauga, died Thursday at her residence, Radley Smith Funeral Home, announcing. And Margaret Adams, age 91 of Sylacauga, died July 13th at Coosa Valley Medical Center. Funeral arrangements are incomplete. They'll be announced by Radley Smith Funeral Home. Funeral service for Mrs. Angela Nisi Denise Leonard Bohannon, age 56 of Alexander City, is 1 p.m. Saturday at First Baptist Church of Alexander City. Burial in the Alexander City Cemetery. Arrangements entrusted to Armors Memorial Services of Alexander City. Funeral service for James Henry Swain, age 89, is 2 o'clock Saturday at Mount Cleveland Baptist Church, with interment in the Pine Hill Memorial Park in Talladega. The body will lie in state at the church 1 hour prior to the service. Online condolences at terrysmortuary.com. Terry's Metropolitan Mortuary directing. Mr. Jeffrey B. Robinson, age 55, died July the 12th in Lincoln. Funeral arrangements are pending. They'll be announced by Community Funeral Home. Online condolences at communityfuneralhome.org. Funeral service for Austin E. Johnson, age 57, is Saturday at 2 p.m. from St. Campbell Baptist Church in Alpine. Interment in the church cemetery. Sims Funeral Service, Talladega directing. Funeral service for Mrs. Amanda Louise Kane, age 63, is Saturday at 3 from the chapel of Radley Funeral Home in Alexander City. The Reverend Mike Jackson officiating. Burial in the Hillview Memorial Park. The family receiving friends Saturday 1:30 to 2:30 at the funeral home. Mrs. Kane died Thursday, July 13th. Memorial messages may be sent to the family at radleyfuneralhome.com. Radley Funeral Home directing. Funeral service for Mrs. Nancy Irene Hales, age 68 of Alexander City, and will be Saturday at 11 a.m. from the chapel of Radley Funeral Home. Reverend Wayne Cowhick officiating. Burial in the Alexander City Cemetery. The family receiving friends tonight, 6 until 8 at the funeral home. Mrs. Hales passed away July the 11th at UAB in Birmingham. She was a member of the Alexander City Methodist Church. Memorial messages can be sent to the family at radleyfuneralhome.com. Radley Funeral Home directing. And Eugene Howard Hall, age 78, died July the 11th at his residence. Funeral service this morning at 10 a.m. from Earthsbury Funeral Home in Talladega, with the Reverend Kevin Jones officiating. Burial at 2 p.m. Eastern Time in Sunrise Memorial Gardens in Douglasville, Georgia. The family will receive friends 1 hour prior to the service at the funeral home. Online condolences at earthsburyfuneralhome.com. Earthsbury Funeral Home in Talladega in charge of the arrangements. These obituaries brought to you by Curtis & Son Funeral Home, the North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. 256-245-4361 for pre-need funerals, burials, or cremations since 1975. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.